Hello and welcome to Pastor's Perspective. I'm your host, Brian Perez, and I'm all alone in the studio today. Where, oh where can the pastors be? Well, there they are at a secret, undisclosed location, also known as Calvary San Diego. Pastors Brian Brodersen and Phil Metzger are there. And yeah, what are you guys doing there? How come you're not here?
We're in a bunker here in Calvary San Diego.
We heard there's some serious stuff coming down. I think it's like a rainstorm or something. And we knew we had to
hunker down.
Sure we were going to be safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys are safe there. And if that is true, then I'll make my way down to Calvary San Diego, too, to be safe with you guys. It looks like you have plenty of room there. What room are you guys in?
So we're in the same room, Brian, where I always am, but we're facing the other direction. So this is the green room for the church. And I'm just we're just facing the other direction. So
got it. Okay.
The odds are someone will open that door and give a deer in the headlights look at some point. Like, oh my gosh.
We'll be like that that one video of the dad, who's doing
the kid
the business meeting with a kid coming in the background. Yeah, well, a few kids
like BBC News.
Yeah,
it's like BBC News, and his kid came in.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I think I saw that. All right.
So
yeah,
but so is it raining up there still, or are you guys in the clear yet, or what's going on?
Right this second.
Some overcast, but no rain.
Yeah, right this second here at the K-Wave building on the campus of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, there is no rain. It's very cloudy, but white puffy cloud. So you could say it's partly sunny and just a beautiful day here.
Good.
Yeah, it rained a little bit this morning, but we're okay right now. So we're going to get through this. All right. 888-564-6173 is the number to call if you'd like to ask Brian or Phil a question. And you can also send in your questions online. We've got the Pastor's Perspective Facebook Messenger or the Pastor's Perspective Instagram. You can DM us there. You can go to kwave.com and look for the Pastor's Perspective page and get your question to us that way. If you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram right now, you can scan the QR code and that will take you right to that Pastor's Perspective page, which is what Regina from Garden Grove did. She writes, "Hi, pastors and Brian Perez." Hi, Regina. Thank you for the show. I have two questions. Please, I want to learn and study about the end times in the Bible, the rapture, the tribulation, the second coming, judgment day, etc. So where should I begin? Second question, if you guys have read the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins, in your opinion, how accurate is it to the possibility of what the last days will be like according to the Bible? Brian, what say you?
Yeah, Brian, I see you.
Okay.
You're always reading books, so I'm sure you would. You've read those.
You know what? I never read the Left Behind series.
I read them all.
Okay, great.
I'll talk about that.
Okay, you talk
about the first part. Teamwork makes the dream work here.
Teamwork. Teamwork. Love it.
Okay, where to get started with, studying the end times? I would just say this because, obviously there's books of the Bible, but you're going to have some challenging parts of those that you're going to go, okay, I read that, but I still don't know what it's talking about. So, the book of Daniel, of course, is great. The book of Daniel is kind of divided into two halves. The first part is more autobiographical about, Daniel's experiences in Babylon and Persia. And then the second half, chapter 7 through the end, is more dealing with eschatology, more dealing with, the future things of the end and so forth. And so Daniel chapter 9 is very, very significant. Chapter 9, but chapter 7 is 7, 9, and probably 12 are the chapters that are really going to talk specifically about, the second coming. And then, of course, you have the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation has its challenges. I think it's probably helpful for somebody who's asking these kinds of questions to go through it with somebody that, can give you a bit of a roadmap through it. If you like to listen to teaching, I've taught the Book of Revelation, and you could find that series on my website, backtobasicsradio.com. Actually, I don't know if you can access the archives right now because we're in the midst of updating that. But anyway, I have that. There's some good commentaries available on the Book of Revelation. There's other New Testament passages that deal with end time stuff, like 1 Thessalonians 4, 2 Thessalonians 2. So I would say probably a pastor that you trust who's taught on these topics, listen to them. Go to their website, get their whatever we use.
Yeah, however it is now.
Get the tape.
Yeah, get the tape. Yeah, buy the record. Yeah.
I would say that would be probably the best way to approach it. If there was a single volume that I would recommend to help you through it, I'll think about that while Phil talks about Left Behind.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe too. I don't. Maybe it's worth it to tell those listening or watching. There's no like one book of the Bible. Like when you talk about eschatology, like you're saying there's not like, hey, this is the book you go to read eschatology. The idea of eschatology is the study of last days. That's what we would call like a systematic thing. So you're looking through all of the Bible where the Bible speaks about last days, and it's all over, like you pointed out. So, okay, Left Behind series. First of all, I'm a reader. I like reading fiction books. Left Behind is a fictional series. It's not based on anything real. So then the question, like, how does it connect to? It is specific to a particular view of last days Bible teaching, a very literal. There's going to be the rapture happens before the tribulation. There's a 7-year tribulation. There's an antichrist. And then Jesus comes back at the end of the 7 years, and that's where the books ended, as far as I remember. It's been a while. They were super fun to read, but I would remind everybody listening, they're fictional books. So fun to read, not inaccurate, but it's difficult to say with end times fictional books that they're accurate. They're accurate from one particular perspective. And there are several great perspectives that people hold to as it relates to end times. This was based on one of them, definitely the most popular because of the books. Fun to read, but I wouldn't hitch your wagon to that theology alone. I would definitely listen to a good pastor, go through. I have it on mine on Calvary SD. We've gone through Revelation just a couple of years ago. Pick somebody you trust, like Brian said, and go through it with them.
All right. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, what's the one book?
Well, actually, the one book isn't a book, because I just remembered we did a year-long series on, we looked at kind of the whole story of God.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Starting in Genesis and all the way through. And the very last study in that series, I did basically the Book of Revelation and kind of tied all of it together. And that's recent. So that was like a year ago.
Perfect.
And I think in that one study, what I tried to do is, like you said, Phil, because it's all over the Bible, I tried to just sort of, pack it all into this one study looking at Revelation. So I can't remember what that study was called right now, but I'm going to find it on my phone, and we'll
send it to Brian Perez.
I'll recommend it when we're answering another question.
That'll work. Yeah. Now, if Regina's thinking, well, I want to listen to studies by a pastor who might, as they used to say, have the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other, and looking at here's what's going on over there, so here's what's happening. How accurate are those teachings?
I'll start with that. It really depends on the issue, doesn't it? It depends on what's going on. There's a danger when we try to make every recent event fit a Bible verse. Like, this just proves it. Here it is. We see it. It's so clear. That's not how we're supposed to understand the scriptures. But we're also big believers that the Bible is telling us about things that are coming. So a lot of the events that we see happening, I would call like indicators of an eventual, right? So like when people are saying, oh my gosh, this thing is the mark of the beast. No, it's not the mark of the beast. But we are certainly seeing technological advancements, global opportunities that have now created the environment where the idea of a singular mark for buying and selling is totally realistic these days. So I think I would look at modern events as indicators of something that is eventually going to happen, but not to say, see, this proves it. Now we know it's true. Look at what's happening in Iran. We know it's true. It's not meant to be lived out like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also found the particular study that I was referring to, and you can find it at backtobasicsradio.com. And the title is The End and the Beginning, and it's 2 parts. And if you go to Back to Basics Radio, right, if you can go there right now, and then you can scroll down to it, and you could listen to it, immediately.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Very nice. And Pastor Brian's teachings are also available, the podcasts on iTunes and Spotify. And there's a link there at backtobasicsradio.com. You can subscribe and you'll get them every day. All right, let's take another question that was sent in online. By the way, the phone lines, we'll get to those in just a little bit. 888-564-6173. Brian Perez here with Pastors Brian Brodersen and Phil Metzger. Till 4 o'clock, 888-564-6173. George in San Pedro asks, if God created laughter, what makes God laugh? Is it safe to say that he has a sense of humor? Phil?
It is very safe to say God has a sense of humor. If we have a sense of humor, it's because it came from, God has a sense of humor. So the question, what would make God laugh? I think probably, in a pure and holy way, some of the same things that make us laugh. The things that bring us joy, I'm sure you think what brings us joy? Well, we're down here at a conference at our church, and one of my grandsons, is in the preschool here, and he came running through to come and say hi, and it just makes me laugh and happy. God takes a lot of delight, and the Bible tells us this over and over. He takes so much delight in his people. He loves his people. Look at the animals that God's created. Some of them are the weirdest things ever. Yeah. And if that doesn't tell me that God has a sense of humor, it's like, why did you make that? It's so cool and weird, and I love it, So I think definitely God has a sense of humor.
Yeah, and people have wondered, like with Jesus, where did that ever come out? Did Jesus ever laugh? Some people would assure you Jesus never laughed. he was about as depressed as they are.
Yeah, stoic.
And but when Jesus said, for example, when he's teaching on judging, and he says not to judge, and then he says, how can you try to get the speck out of your brother's eye and not consider the plank in your own eye? So how are you trying to get a little bit of sawdust out of your brother's eye, and you actually have like a 4x6, in your own eye? I think everybody started snickering in the crowd, if not double.
Yeah, they weren't like, oh, wow, so deep. They're like, that's hilarious.
So I think you see that come out there. But there is a place in Scripture where it actually says God laughs, and it's Psalm 2, but it's not because it's funny. It's because it's absurd that the nations think they can overthrow God. Mm-hmm. He that sits in heaven will laugh.
I think too, Jesus, in his life, just thinking about what you were saying there, the fact that little children were brought to him, that really, the idea of Jesus as stoic and introverted and kind of serious just doesn't fit the idea of a person that kids loved.
Yeah.
It seems like he was a person full of joy, full of joy.
Yeah. If Jesus is, which we believe he's the perfect human.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So he's the fullness of what a human is.
Yep.
Of course he's got.
I had a great sense of humor, actually. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, George, for sending in your question on the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com. Here's another one. It's from Ruben, possibly in Indonesia. I'm not for sure about that, but he's listening on the K-Wave app, and he writes, please address again the charge made by pro-gay theologians and teachers that in passages dealing with homosexuality, the Bible has been mistranslated. Brian, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, gosh, I don't know if that's such an argument that they try to make anymore, because I think most would say, probably the most recent example of that would be people talking about the term homosexual.
Right.
Because there's a couple of versions that do include the word homosexual, and then they want to bring up how homosexual didn't even come into use until the 1940s or whatever the dates were. And so therefore, this is a mistranslation because, there's no word in the original text for homosexual. The word in the original text that you find, say, in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, where Paul's talking about those who will not inherit the kingdom of God, he literally says men who have sex with men. Okay, well, that's literally what it says. Mm-hmm. So it's not, homosexual is a modern, it's like a modern interpretation of what Paul actually said. So this is where I appreciate, like, say, the NIV or, the CSB, the old version, like the King James wasn't helpful to our generation because it used a term like abuser of themselves with mankind.
Yeah,
it's like, what
does that mean?
Is that? No, the actual word means men having sex with men. So today the argument isn't so much, other than that, maybe that part of it right there, but the argument today is that, well, what they were talking about was something different than what we have today. So today we have gay marriage. Today we have, love and commitment. Back then, a lot of it was pederasty, which is the, kind of sex with young boys. And a lot of it was forced. And it wasn't like mutual love and commitment and things like that. But that just simply isn't the case. And so it's just, a lot of times people...
Would it be inclusive of that, though?
It would, in some places, right, obviously, but not in
not exclusively.
Every place. Yeah. Men having sex with men is just men having sex with men. Yeah. It's not, doesn't give you the circumstances, right? So, so it's a matter of just not wanting to, I think, face what the text is saying truly in the context that it was given, that it was actually forbidding same-sex relationships. That's what it's forbidding. It's not forbidding certain kinds of same-sex relationships. It's forbidding all same-sex sexual relationships.
All right. Phil, any thoughts?
No, it's great.
All right. Ruben, thank you for sending in your question through the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com. And here's a question from Linda, who is in Atlanta, Georgia. And she writes, hang on here. Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Here's Linda's question. I asked a friend who goes to, let's call it, a church with political leanings, if my Democrat neighbors would feel comfortable at his church, at this pastor's church. And my neighbor said, yes, because the truth shall set you free. I was disappointed to hear her use that verse regarding politics. Anyway, do you think the recent vote counts 2 weeks ago on Prop 50 will convince California pastors to just stick to the Bible on Sundays? Phil, what do you think?
No. There was the short.
That was a yes or no question. Yes, you're right.
You put it in a yes or no.
I did.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think those that are in that camp, they're gonna. This is almost like fuel to the fire. Like, we lost this, and we need to fight more and all. And of course, we're like, this is a pastor's perspective show. We're focused on giving biblical answers to real life circumstance. That doesn't mean we don't have our own opinions. The difference is I think so when somebody says, oh, your Democrat friend can come to our church because we preach the truth, I'm trying to create an environment in our church where you could be Republican, you could be Democrat, you could not care about any of that. And you're going to be confronted with who God is and then who you are in light of that. And it'll impact your politics, but not define your politics. So it should be impacting of our politics, right? How I view the world, how I see God, those will change how I vote. But if I start with how you should vote, I may never win people to Christ. I may only win them to voting in my direction. And I don't want to win people to vote my opinion. I really want to see them know Christ. And then I'm fully confident that they will vote as God's working in their life.
Brian?
I couldn't say that any better. I mean, that was excellent. I agree 100% with Bill.
Very good. Linda, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook. And let's do one more, and then we'll go to the phones. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. We've got Brian Broderson and Phil Metzger here answering your questions. Again, 888-564-6173. Lisa from Ontario, California wants to know, on the topic of Lucifer being ejected from heaven, in Job 1, why was he permitted to come back into heaven to present himself before the Lord? And then again, later in Job, why did God give him permission to bother Job yet again? Brian, what do you tell Lisa?
Well, I don't know. Remember?
We're
Not that again.
This is a why did God do something question.
Yes, that's true.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So wait, what did he do again? He
gave Lucifer permission to come into the presence of God in Job 1. You know, he was before the...
Oh, since he was kicked out of heaven?
Right. He had been removed from heaven. So why does he now, in Job 1 and then later in Job, why did God let him be there?
Okay, yeah, we don't know why God did that. But I think what we need to understand is that although Jesus says, I saw Satan fall as lightning from heaven, it means that he was cast out of his position that he held in heaven. But it doesn't mean that he was no longer allowed access to God's presence, because we know he was allowed access to God's presence all the way into the book of Zechariah in the Old Testament, but closer to the time of the New Testament period, we have a picture of the high priest standing before the Lord and Satan there at his right hand to accuse him. And then, we have the reference in Revelation to him being the accuser of the brothers and sisters. But then there is that point in Revelation where he is, I think what she's thinking, where he's actually banned from heaven, where he's not only out, but he's out permanently. He no longer has access.
Phil?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great answer. I'm thinking too, just kind of take it a little bit further. There's nowhere that Lucifer can go except God allows it. Nowhere. Not on earth, not in heaven. There is no and he's more hyper aware of that reality than I think even we are of the sovereignty of God. That the breath that I'm just taken is because of the grace of God. And I'm kind of unaware of that a lot in my life. I'm going to go to sleep tonight and not be, anxiety filled, thinking, what if I stop breathing? I just live my life. The devil is so insanely aware that anywhere he can go is only because God has allowed that. And I think we got to remember that includes heaven, but it includes everywhere. It includes every accusation, every bit. He has no right except that God would allow certain things.
Lisa, thanks for sending in your question about Job from, or the book of Job, I should say, from through the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com, which you can easily get to when you scan the QR code on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, if that's how you're watching right now. Phone lines are open, 888-564-6173. Speaking of YouTube, here is Teddy, who is watching us there from Cerritos, so we'll wave hi to Teddy. What's your question for us, Teddy?
Hey, brothers. Thank you. So I just finished Luke, and I got Chuck Smith's Word for Today Bible. And in the commentary, he mentions John, people wanted to boil him, and I think God protected him. And it mentions Fox's Book of Martyrs. Chuck Smith mentions it. So I've never heard of this. I just wanted to if you guys can if you know anything about it and your perspective, and if I should buy the book.
Yeah, we know about it, Teddy. I think Phil's probably read it. I've read it.
Fantastic.
It's really kind of a classic book written in, I think, the 1600s, maybe 1700s, by a man named John. I think it's John Fox. And he basically just goes back and he's kind of looking at the martyrs throughout history, going back to the apostles. Tracing, as much of the historical record as he can get. And then some of it is, a bit probably mixed with some legendary kind of things and so forth. So there is a tradition, there is the idea that we know John was banished to the Isle of Patmos because he tells us that that's the case in Revelation. That's where he wrote Revelation from. So there is also the tradition that that the emperor attempted to kill him by putting him in boiling oil. But like the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that Nebuchadnezzar threw into the fiery furnace, they were not harmed. So John was not harmed either. And I would imagine Fox's Book of Martyrs records that. So,
and I checked where that comes from, and it comes from Tertullian.
Tertullian, yeah.
In the year about 200, so about 100 years after John, maybe 110, 15, he writes that happened.
That happened.
So the Fox's Book of Martyrs was taking it from Tertullian.
Yeah. So that's what Fox did. He went back and he compiled this. There are some aspects I remember even in reading Fox's Book of Martyrs where I thought, okay, this is more legend that has kind of crept in here. But
and this could be too, right?
It could be, yeah.
But
when you're 200 years away, everybody's like, this guy said it and he was 200 years. 200 years is a long time.
That's a long time.
And in those days, there tended to be kind of legendary stuff that easily got mixed in. So, but all that to say, Teddy, Fox's Book of Martyrs is great. It's kind of a classic, kind of a Christian classic that, there's probably better stuff today on martyrs than Fox's book, but it's a good overview.
It's like the starting point.
Yeah, the starting point. And it'll take you up through pretty much the Reformation period because Fox wrote a little while after that. So there's a lot of history from, say the 1700s to today that's obviously not going to be included.
Can you think of any books that have been written recently that maybe cover that last 200 to 300 years that aren't in Fox's Book of Martyrs?
You're talking
on martyrs, not specifically, but a book called From Jerusalem to Irian Jaya is a book about missions from the beginning, Jerusalem, and then Irian Jaya is Indonesia. And so it's kind of looking at the history of missions, which is honestly full of martyrdom. One of the stories you'll read in Jerusalem to Irian Jaya is the death of Jim Elliot and his friends who died in Ecuador as martyrs trying to bring the gospel in. So I think maybe that would be
that's a seminal, such an important missions book. Yeah. Ruth Tucker, From Jerusalem to Irian Jaya. I'm looking up on my shelves. F.F. Bruce has a book called The Flame.
Yes,
and which
is great.
It's a great book as well, and those are fantastic. Just specific to the Jim Elliot story is a book called Through Gates of Splendor, and that's the story that his wife wrote, Elizabeth Elliot, about their kind of love story and then his martyrdom, and it's fantastic. The other one I would read connected to that is Missionary to the Headhunters.
Yes.
By Frank Drown.
Oh my gosh.
Who was also connected to that same story, but it was amazing.
Yes.
I'm literally just looking at my shelf here, and I'm just going to keep going with no.
I was going to say, do you have a martyr shelf? What is that shelf?
Yeah, it's behind us for today. I just looked up. There are some new ones in like 2023 that have come out. I'm not going to mention them because I don't know anything about them. So, this is I think they say this is like one of the bloodiest centuries for Christians, we've ever had. And I mean, at least since the first, maybe 5 centuries. So I think there's going to be some insane stories coming out. I know if it's okay to just mention right now, I know a lot of people who are watching news are hearing a lot about Nigeria these days.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know I've been getting lots of calls because of our experience and friends over there. And I'm always reminding people, like, actually 2025 hasn't been, a lot of these news articles are from a few years ago. But it has been a brutal for both Christians and, if you can imagine this, for Muslims.
Yeah.
Terrorist groups don't care. And so quite often Muslims have been killed just like Christians, but it's very, very dangerous to be a Christian in some parts of Nigeria.
Yeah.
I think heaven's going to tell us some great stories.
Yep. Teddy, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. We've got to take a break. 888-564-6173 is the number to call if you've got a question for us today on Pastor's Perspective. Hey, we're back on Pastor's Perspective, 888-564-6173. That's the number to call from now till 4 o'clock if you've got a question about the Bible, the Christian faith, just about anything that's on your mind. We've got a couple of pastors here to answer your question. They're not actually here in the studio with me. They are on location at Calvary San Diego, which is where Phil Metzger is the senior pastor. Brian Broderson's running around there somewhere, I think. He's the guy from echoesofmercy.com. I see him on camera. He's walking back. I think he got a refill of his Coca-Cola or something. I don't know. But we're ready to answer more questions at 888-564-6173. And also the questions that you send in online, like this one from Tub, who says, I have a question regarding worship music from certain worship groups and bands. Is it wrong to sing certain worship songs from certain churches that are mainstream? I was told that certain songs from these churches should not be sung at church because they are man-driven and not theological. This is a question we used to get all the time, and I thought maybe it had been resolved, but I guess not. Maybe,
never,
I don't know.
Brian Perez, never.
Yeah, I guess not, yeah. So what do you guys think about worship music sung by certain groups? And it doesn't tell us which ones, but we can imagine which ones they might be.
Yeah. I personally think that this is a rather, how do I put it? I just think it's a question that's like, why are we asking this question? People talk about, the hymns, or they talk about, these deep theological songs, which it's great. I love hymns. I love deep theological songs. But, when you read the Psalms, some of the Psalms are just like, they're very simple. Some of the songs seem very man-centered because the man writing them is talking about all of his struggles and difficulties and perspectives sometimes. And of course, he brings it around to God. So I mean, I think there are probably songs out there that just are not very good songs, and I would just say don't sing them.
Right.
But if a song is a great song, and the people, the church that it came out of, or the movement that it's connected to, you don't particularly agree with, so what? The song says what it says, and as long as it's not espousing or communicating some heretical view of God, I would say, I personally think it's fine. What do you think?
I totally agree. I feel like we should be concerned about the theology we're singing.
Yes.
Okay. We think we should be concerned with the theology we're singing. But to assume that like, well, because it's written from like man's perspective and how they feel about God, that's not right. Well, that's not true, because like you said, there's several Psalms that are like that.
Yeah.
It's me expressing my heart to God.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about songs not correctly describing good theology.
Yeah.
But, like back in the day, we used to sing a song all the time, creating me a clean heart.
Yeah.
And cast me not away from thy presence, oh God. God's not going to, in the New Testament, God's not going to take his presence from me. Like I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, right? But we still love the song because it's expressing a feeling that I have with God. And so I think we need to like maybe not be too harsh on groups that we may not agree with, but they write some songs that are like, wow, that is so meaningful. And so, let's make sure we sing good theology, but beyond that, let's have charity towards each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I would say this too, I mean, stepping out on a little bit of a limb here, like groups like Bethel, for example, and even Hillsong, there would be things that I would not agree with their theological views on certain things. But for the most part, the songs they've written, the content of the songs, the theological perspectives from the songs are tremendous. Yeah. They're very, very deep and very biblical.
Yep.
And, maybe they're doing something in their church practice that I would kind of question, that the validity of that. That is not coming across in their music to me.
Or at least the songs that catch fire in the movement, in the Christendom, right?
I mean, you listen to these songs, you're like, somebody's thinking pretty seriously about this stuff.
Same with like Hillsong stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Same with Hillsong stuff.
Yeah. Because Hillsong was accused a long time ago. And, Hillsong was, in the earliest days, Hillsong was very what we would have called kind of prosperity.
Totally.
But then they shifted sort of away from that. But then the music, my goodness, you listen to some of the songs that those guys have written.
So deep.
You're like, this is deep.
Like a theologian wrote that song.
Theologian wrote it. And as a matter of fact, in a lot of cases, Matt Redman is a friend of mine. Matt's written some of the best songs in, the modern church era. Matt studied under a theologian in order to enhance his theological understanding to write songs with great content.
That's so great.
Yeah, and I also think of our friends Keith and Kristen Getty.
Yes. Well, nobody's questioning the content of their songs.
No. I'm only bringing them up because you mentioned Matt Redman, but it's the same thing with the Gettys.
Like a Phil Wickham, who is so rooted. He's got such a deep root in the Word of God and in theology, and then he's able, and like this is why we need these people. They're able to express something. I'll listen to a Phil song and I'll be like, I felt that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have written that.
Couldn't have said it that way.
I couldn't have said it that way and made it sound so great. And so we have to give some space for those people.
The song that I think everybody who's ever heard this song sung loves this song and feels like this is such an expression of almost everybody's heart at some point in life. It is well with my soul.
Oh, yeah.
It is well with my soul. One of the great hymns. Yeah. If you read the backstory to the guy who wrote the song, you'd be like, wait, I don't know if we can sing this song because he had a lot of problems. And, he wrote that song because his children were crossing the Atlantic in a ship that sunk and they died. And so this was expressing, God's comfort for him. But he went on. He was a partner in ministry with D.L. Moody. They had a falling out. He had all kinds of financial problems that
some
were
bizarre stuff.
Yeah, really weird stuff. And then his wife, they went to Jerusalem and they started like a cult.
Oh my goodness.
Weird. But it's a great song.
And we still sing it to this day. So going back to what you said about, that some of these churches, what they preach on a Sunday morning might be a little bit off, but their songs are always spot on. Should we maybe just get the worship leaders to lead the church then? Because they seem to have it together and the main pastor doesn't? I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my call.
Yeah. Above my pay grade.
Yeah. We got our own problems. We'll work on ours.
And that's a problem when your church, and this is true for any of our churches, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah, where one part becomes completely separated from the other part, when that's not the church. Like, we're not just worship. We're not just preaching. It's like this thing that happens together. And so when you let that become separate, that's its own problem. It's not even that the worship guy should be preaching and not the preacher. It's that, like, where's the preacher in all this? Like, they should be a part of that,
But, this goes back. Remember, Phil, when you were young and I was younger, back in the Vineyard days, there were questions among Calvary Chapel pastors whether
and we sing those songs,
right to sing Vineyard songs. And now I think most of us would look back and say, how stupid was I back then?
We needed that. We needed them so bad.
Yes.
Well, even and just historically, a lot of the songs, Luther would take a lot of songs, and he wrote a ton of songs himself, but he used tunes that were bar tunes.
Yeah.
He used tunes that people back then were familiar with, and he put Christian lyric to that. I mean, it sounds like that sounds so cheesy and lame and dumb, and yet, nobody's arguing when they hear a Luther hymn. They're like, oh, that's totally anointed and great. Back then, it was from a bar song, and I think so. There's got to be a lot of grace. We didn't have a lot of grace in the past.
I know.
We got to be more gracious about that.
Yes.
I have a Vineyard story. When I first started working here at K-Wave, we played, a lot of Maranatha music and Vineyard music, but the rule here in the studio was, yes, you can play a song by Vineyard, but don't mention that it's Vineyard. So it's like the song would play and we wouldn't tell people, oh yeah, that's a song by Vineyard. It's like, nope, just skip it and go on to the next song. That was like a kind of like a policy that we had, and we don't have that policy anymore. But then again, we don't play Vineyard anymore. But
yeah. Thankfully, we don't have that policy anymore.
I spent so much of my childhood at Anaheim Vineyard recording. We used their studio back in the day for Salty and Colby, before we had Whitefields. Yeah. And front row seat to some of that.
Yeah, so don't listen to any Salty stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It was recorded at Vineyard.
Tub, thank you for sending in your question through the Pastor's Perspective Facebook page using Messenger. Now we're going to go to the phones here.
Wait, Brian,
go ahead, Brian. Yes.
Let me just say, I just forgot about just the fact that I am sitting next to a legend, a childhood star.
We don't talk about that much.
I know. I forget.
For very good reason.
Sometimes I forget who Phil actually is, and it's like, wow.
So can you tell us who Phil really is, or who? Yeah, tell us the story really quick.
Well, we were, in fact, we watched last night with Debbie Kerner-Rodino on there. We were watching the story of Love Song, the documentary. So anyways, when I was a kid, there was a show, or there was a theater production, albums and music that was coming out, Salty, the Singing Songbook, and Ernie and Debbie Rotino. And Debbie Kerner-Rodino was one of the very first kind of Maranatha artists. I think they did Praise One. I think her and Ernie did Praise One. At any rate, they were having auditions for kids to be a part of the show, and I auditioned back then and was a part of that. So I was singing for, these Salty and Colby and all these shows since I was about 8 or 9 years old. So, yeah.
So were you Salty?
Famous.
Was that you?
What'd you say?
Was that you, Salty? Were you Salty?
I was not. Nope, I was one of the kids in the show.
Got it.
I was not the giant blue costume. That's Ernie Rotino.
That's Ernie. Actually. Yes, that's right. Yes. A little bit of history there.
Why I hang out with Phil.
That's right. Hey, yeah, I'm going to hang out with him more now.
Total street cred with the 8-year-olds.
Yeah. You can walk up right to the front of the line at the coffee shop. Just say, do you know who I am? Yeah. Works every time. All right, Letitia in Vista, thank you so much for calling in today. How can we help you? By the way, the number Letitia called is 888-564-6173. Hi, Letitia.
Good afternoon, and thank you for taking my call. My question is, my husband has just recently said in front of me that he is an agnostic, which he's never said before. I am a Christian. I like to listen to Christian radio. He does not. He has specifically asked that I not play Christian radio when he is in the car with me, which I do a lot. And so I want to know if, in your opinion, is that denying Christ? Because it says in the Bible, if you don't know me, then I don't know you.
So you're wondering if you're denying Christ if you turn off K-Wave in the car when your husband is in the car with you. What do you say, Brian?
Letitia, no, not at all. Of course not. I mean, you're not denying Christ. You're just complying with your husband's wish, even though you don't really like his request to not listen to the radio. There's nothing to do with that. You still love Jesus. You still have your faith in the Lord. He's not telling you, if you're going to be my wife, you can't believe in Jesus. You're not saying, okay, I don't believe in Jesus. So no, not at all. I think that's, if you're responding by just saying, okay, fine, I won't listen to it here. I think that's probably just the best way to go. It's not anything to have a war over. You can listen to it when he's not in the car. And, this is his problem. And I think you can just be gracious and pray for him that God will work on his heart. Obviously, he's got issues there. So, but what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, maybe if you want any pushback, it would be, hey, how about 50-50? I won't listen to it the whole time, but I want that a little bit. But I don't, like Brian said, don't feel any condemnation. That, I think it grieves us that you would even think that this is denying Christ. This is not in any way, shape, or form denying Christ.
Not even close.
Not even close. So be free from that. Yeah.
And, on a personal note, whenever my wife gets in the car with me, she says, turn that radio off. And I say, yes, ma'am. So but it's not K-Wave that I'm listening to. Let's just make it.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, you're not on. Yeah, Back to Basics is on, and she's like, turn that off.
She just hates the radio being on when she's in the car. So
Yeah.
It's like, I accommodate that.
Now, let's look at this angle, too. Based on the answer that you guys gave, people might wonder, specifically women, they might say, wait a minute, so the guy should just control or what gets played on the radio in the car or not played? So is it an issue with Christian radio, or, I mean, even if it was a country station or a rock station or something, and the guy was saying, turn that off, what would you say to that, Phil?
I'd say it's definitely not a male-female issue at all. It's more of like an accommodation to each other, right? So, like Joy, my wife is like, hey, let's turn the radio on. Sometimes I'll just forget. I'm just driving and I don't have it on. I'm like, turn it on. And I'm thinking, we're having a good conversation. Why do you want to stop that? But she's not. It's like she just likes to have music on. We got to, dude, like relationships are about like just like accommodating each other's preferences. And I wouldn't necessarily like, obviously, if you're married to a person who's agnostic or not Christian, and they're making it about like faith, that becomes a little bit touchy. But otherwise, I would just say this is about like, I want to serve. We're in a marriage to serve each other, right? And so something as simple as that, I would never want to lose sleep over or fight over. Those are not worth it. Those are easy accommodations. And I don't think I should always win, and I don't think she should always win. It's not about winning. It's just about serving each other.
All right. Thank you, Letitia, for calling in to Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. And now here's Chuck in Alpine, who's listening on the K-Wave app. Hello, Chuck. Thanks for downloading the K-Wave app, and thanks for calling 888-564-6173.
Well, thank you. As we get into the Christmas season, we'll say, a lot of people will put Xmas, and I'm not sure if I had heard a story that the actual X and had something to do with the birth of Christ or a story in the Bible. Am I just daydreaming, or is there something related to that where most people think they're crossing out Christ, but there really is a story to it?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. The X is the Greek chi, and the chi is the CH in Christ. So X becomes short for Christ. That's the simplest way to put it. Now, I think there are people who, there's probably a bunch of people never think about it. There might be a few people that actually think, I'm going to X Jesus out of this thing.
Right.
But I think they're the minority.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of people don't know that the X stands for the chi, the Greek chi. But that is actually where it originated.
So all these campaigns we've had over the years of keep Christ in Christmas, how dare you put Xmas? It's almost like, well, they are. They just don't even know.
You could say he is still in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of that Xmas stuff, modern, is trying to get Christ out of it. But it's not like we those aren't fights that we Christians should be having. Those should not be, or like if somebody said, I'm already getting ahead because we're going to get these for the next 5 weeks. Happy holidays, and I've got to say Merry Christmas. I always add the you filthy animal. Was that Home Alone? Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. I think there's this like battle that we think we need to have to prove our Christian faith, that like we may not be winning in ways we think we are. We might actually be losing. And so, and that'll be coming up. But Xmas is not a atheistic or agnostic thing at all. Not originally.
And, if you think about it, it could be a great conversation piece. You could just say, hey, did you know? And
what it means. Yeah.
Did you know that the X stands for Christ?
And that's true. Like, just because we just got done with it, I spend so much time, I know we both do. Halloween, I take so much time to say, did you know what Halloween originally was? Like, let's talk about that. Oh my gosh, nobody knows that. They all think it's Hell's Bells and all that kind of stuff, when there's like a whole Christian story behind that. So it's good to educate people in those ways.
For sure. And when you do tell people about the X and Christmas or the true meaning of Halloween, you can tell them you heard about it on K-Wave. And then that kind of gives a plug for the radio station. I like that. There you go. All right, Chuck, does this answer your question?
Yes. And can I say one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Christmas, this is really to Brian, of his father-in-law, Chuck, went to Fallbrook for when he was having chemo, and he showed up that night, and his cheeks looked exactly like Santa Claus because the chemo had turned him bright red and everything. And that night, what a special night.
That's special. It was a special night just to get to have Chuck there. That's sweet.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And he had the best Santa Claus like laugh, Just that great deep.
Yes. And that was year round, not just around Christmas time.
Exactly. That's special.
Yeah, he could have pulled off a good Santa Claus.
Totally.
Had he put on a little red cap.
Beard. Yeah.
All right, Joseph in Riverside, you're next here on Pastor's Perspective. Hello.
Hi. I hope you guys are having a good day. I just wanted to get you guys' perspective on the topic of smoking tobacco, whether that be like cigarettes or vapes or even fresh leaf tobacco in a tobacco pipe. I know a lot of times we'll be graceful and not necessarily fall back on, but, have it rely on personal conviction. But I just wanted to get your guys' perspective and also see if there's anything, in the Bible more black and white about yes or no on the topic of doing that.
Okay, so Joseph, are you a smoker, or are you asking on behalf of someone else, or what?
I used to smoke a lot, cigarettes and fresh leaf tobacco back when I was in the military, and then even using like those the like little pouches in the mouth. I stopped after I got out, and I gave my life to the Lord, and it's been coming back a little bit more with through vaping with myself and my wife. She also used to and then stopped, and we kind of both were recently within the past like 2 weeks. So I wanted to pick you guys' brain on it.
Okay, so you've started vaping in the last 2 weeks, is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What do you guys think? Brian?
Well, I know Phil's into vaping, but I'm not, so I can't really.
He's joking, people.
We like to have fun here.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, look, tobacco is not. There's nothing in the scripture that's going to say, don't smoke tobacco. We make a distinction between tobacco and marijuana because marijuana alters your, thinking process and so forth. So we consider that a different kind of a thing. It would be like drinking alcohol and getting drunk on alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so, so those are different things. The Bible doesn't say you can't drink wine or beer or whatever. The Bible just says, do not be drunk. Yeah. So with this, the Bible doesn't really address it. I think the most obvious concern about tobacco is its proven link to cancer. And so I think if you're a person who occasionally smokes a cigar or a pipe or something like that, your risks are much lower than a person who's like, 3 packs a day or something like that. So, and I think the other thing, and we've answered this before this way, that anything that has a hold on you, like an addictive kind of a thing, just isn't really probably healthy. I know you could argue that. What about coffee? What about caffeine? Because people do have that addiction too. Okay. So, my answer to you, Phil might have a different take. My answer is that this is not sin at all. And it's something that you just kind of have to figure out between you and I guess your wife too. And you have to think about, is this a health issue for us? Are we going to, set ourselves up for something that we don't really want to experience later down the road? But again, I think if it's in moderation, you're probably not even risking that. So,
Phil Metzger, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this question. People might say, well, what about the verse that says the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? And if you're smoking or drinking or whatever, you're going against that.
Yeah, I think that's a culturally appropriating that verse to meet that. Which I know you're not doing, Brian, but that's, I think people are doing that. They're taking current things. That verse has a lot more, we want to take care of the body God's given us for his glory. But, Paul didn't get to take care of his body. It was beaten by people, it was abused, and it was later, martyred. So, I think we can take that maybe too far in that direction.
Yeah. And the body being the temple there, he's talking about really like moral and spiritual purity. That's what he's referring to. He's not referring to, my goodness. I mean,
wait. Sorry. We're out of time. Forgive me, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Sean McDowell will be on the program tomorrow. Talk to you then on Pastor's Perspective.